Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fictitious Dark, where we explore the line between truth and the fictitious. Today, we have a very special topic. We will be discussing UFOs, or as they are now known, UAPs, aliens, extraterrestrials. What are the little green men that we have been citing for so many decades, and according to some people, perhaps have been having reported cases for all of our recorded history? Today, I am joined with Brandon
What's up?
and Rick.
Yo.
So today, I figured what we would do, because this is a very well-known and popular topic, is rather than do the boring stuff, like are aliens real, and just do that, we're going to explore this topic from three different, somewhat more fringe, not totally fringe. We're not going into like aliens are actually our cows and they kidnap themselves or anything like that. Or maybe we will. Brandon might have something. But we're going to start with Brandon and his topic, move on to me, finish up with Rick, and then we will have a conclusion that will consist of us all not really debating, but maybe coming to a conclusion as what seems the most plausible explanation for some of this phenomena. Also, we've already done a video of Brandon and I reacting to UFO footage. A lot of it is jokes, but I feel like we were pretty open-minded, even though we debunked like 95.5% of them. So anyway, without further ado, Brandon, would you please lead us off with your UFO extraterrestrial topic?
Yeah, so today I decided to go into the specific categorization of like the types of UFO aliens. I shouldn't even say the word UFO because I'm just talking about the beings themselves. So, you got your grays, your reptilian, and your little green men are the primary three. So those are going to be the ones I'm focusing on. Starting off, I guess we'll just get into the little green men. So one thing with how that started, that phrase and everything, that one is probably the most fictitious looking at things, because it looks like it kind of got popular from literally like comic books and books back in the day. But also Little Green Men goes pretty far back with using that term to describe other things, not even just aliens, something like the Fae and leprechauns and just other kind of more like cryptos and stuff like that. So these ones are kind of interesting. They're not as like, there's not as much like info on it as a lot of the other ones, simply because it is more of a fabrication. However, the idea of little green men, I would say it does kind of, it bleeds into almost everything when it comes to just fringe topics, the cryptid stuff, demonology stuff, all sorts of stuff where it's not quite just aliens. This one kind of goes a little bit everywhere, because I know there's been things of people like reporting just like, oh, little green men are attacking me, haunting me, doing these things, where people have like speculated them specifically, where it's like, is this a schizophrenic deal? Is this a something paranormal? And that's where a lot of people have had descriptions of that. I know there was this show, oh man, what was it called? Let me try and look it up real quick. It was, give me a moment. You guys can talk about everything I just talked about.
Yeah. In the meantime, I had a couple of thoughts about that. It seems to me that the little green men is kind of closer to the reptilian idea than the gray aliens. The color just kind of codes them as reptilian. I know in a lot of old comic books, I think in the Iron Giant too, I might be misremembering some of those covers, but it's usually like they have they're like green and have the big eyes, but they usually have some kind of pupil. It's not the the kind of plain black that I see with a lot of the gray depictions, and usually they from what I've seen, the little green men usually have 4 or 5 fingers. Have you seen anything, or the little green men? I know it's their name. Have they at all been depicted consistently as being smaller than the grays, or anything with the proportions, Brandon?
Definitely smaller. There are some depictions where they're literally super tiny. Like
Right. Like literal
yeah,
fairies.
like the main thing that really got them popular was a, let's see, was it this comic book? It was a book that then they made comic books and stuff. And I'm looking at a picture now, and it is like you got a passed out woman and like a bunch of little green
Yeah.
aliens crawling on her and stuff. So
Yeah.
like literally
The classic.
small, yeah. And that's
The
where
classic cover, yeah.
yeah, you get into like a lot of folklore type stuff with the Fae, kind of stuff. But there was the show I was talking about. There's a show called Hellier. It is by name. It's because of it's a town. I don't remember what state it's in. But it is a documentary of just these paranormal investigators. Looks like it says it's directed by Carl Pfeiffer. And he was like, they're just kind of more like ghost hunters type deal, like just paranormal investigators in general. And they were reached out by some anonymous person claiming that he was having little green men. And like he might have had a little bit more descriptions, but kind of like talking about like they're like goblins. That's like the look of them, which is a lot of the little green men. Like you get into like goblin territory and everything. But this guy, he claimed that these little green men, goblins, were coming onto his property from a cave system nearby, and were like just messing with his stuff, breaking his things, messing with his dog, and like just moving stuff around on his property. And he would see them sometimes at night.
So he would see them go back into the cave. That's why he knows it's from the cave system.
I think he speculated that they came from the cave because that's the direction they went.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of those things. I'm basing this up mostly off of memory because I watched it. It might have been more so the TV show people of them kind of figuring out there's a cave system that way. But unfortunately, nothing really came out of it. This anonymous emails, they went into the property and area and everything. And there was weird coincidences and spooky stuff around the area. And they found the cave system and explored it. But not much came out of it. But that is kind of a classic story where I've heard before of these little green men came out of nowhere and did things to me and my property and stuff like that. They're definitely a type of just a menace. Which,
Yeah, they're more mischievous.
yeah, which
Right.
totally fits like fairy and the fae like a lot more than your.
Or are they like the classic, like almost like 50s, 60s alien look?
That's
they
more
like
so
really
the
bug eyes?
grays, which is your classic 50s alien look. That's like what kind of took over. I think back in the day, it probably was more so the little green men that were more popular, but then it was the grays that kind of took over. And because in the 50s, that was where the big incident that we were just talking about in preparation
Roswell?
for Roswell, yes. That's kind of where the grays really started to get popular because people claimed that they saw these gray aliens in autopsies and all that stuff, which is kind of questionable around that incident simply because these stories started to come out years after the Roswell incident and everything. So it is one of those things where it was like,
Well, they came out
Are they
years
just
later
adding
because
it?
they were
Yeah.
suppressed.
exactly. But the Greys, they do have an interesting history. Let me pull up the exact thing. Okay. So, origins of the Greys. In 1893, H.G. Wells presented a description of humanity's future appearance in the article The Man of the Year Million, describing humans as having no mouths, noses, or hair, with large heads. In 1895, Wells also depicted Eloi, a successor species to humanity. And then that gets into some stuff that Josiah's probably going to touch on.
Yeah, of course.
But then, so then his depiction, his like kind of drawing that he did, was a little bit more of your typical gray alien. And then this was also then like emphasized on because of a certain character. So early as 1917, the occultist Aleister Crowley described a meeting with preternatural entity, I don't know how to read, named Lamb, that was similar in appearance to a modern gray. Crowley believed he had contacted the entity through a process that he called the Amalantra workings, which he thought allowed humans to contact beings from outer space and across dimensions. Other occultists and UFOologists, many of whom have retroactively linked Lamb to later gray encounters, have since described their own visitations from him, with one describing that the being as a cold computer-like intelligence and utterly beyond human comprehension. So that cold computer-like intelligence, that is your classic modern day, like the alien that comes in, he's just like, yes, I have no feelings, that kind of stuff that you'll see a lot in like comedies, that's for sure.
Men in Black, I think, had a few of those.
Yeah, exactly. So that one is that one's really interesting because of the whole Aleister Crowley aspect involvement, because he probably not a very nice guy. He's a occultist, Satanist, did a lot of interesting things, just a lot of demonic.
He may not have been bad, but he was definitely probably a degenerate.
Yeah, so definitely he perpetuated and encouraged some not great behavior when it comes to occultism and stuff like that. And so the fact that he did claim, these were beings, but from outer space, so he was kind of combining a little bit of demonology and aliens and stuff like that, and that is more so where this whole Gray's depiction came from.
Well, it's interesting. Just as a side tangent, there you mentioned occultism and aliens. This connection, it reminds me of Heaven's Gate. You know that story. How he combined this kind of mythology. The cult leader combined the mythology of the spaceship or the passing comet is gonna take our spirits with it in outer space. So it's like a weird in between extraterrestrial and spiritual kind of cult belief that seems like it's kind of the spin-off of the Crowley thing, where maybe he hadn't read H.G. Wells' work, maybe it was a coincidence, and that's just his vision of what the higher being was. But it is interesting how that just the moment you said that, it reminded me of Heaven's Gate. I was just thinking of the wide eyes and like we're all gonna go up on the craft. It's okay.
Yeah, and then if for those who might not remember exactly what we're talking about with Heaven's Gate, this is our Kool-Aid ones, right?
No. That was that was Jim Jones.
Jim Jones, that's right. They had a similar
Heaven's Gate. They did commit suicide though.
Yeah. What was their
mass ritual suicide?
What was their method?
Well, they were all in their beds, I believe. So I forget the particulars, but I think they took.
They were injected with something, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And the whole thought and idea behind it was they were going to get on the spacecraft and get into these like bodies that were far evolved more than humans and be taken to like the mother planet, where they can live happily ever after and not have to have all this pain and sorrow that humanity gives.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that's also kind of funny about, well, not necessarily funny, but interesting about the Heaven's Gate thing is the alien craft was going to come by and they were going to die at the same time and their spirit was going to go up to it. Sounds a lot like the Scientology belief
Yes.
system. But yeah, let me
Have you guys seen that Scientology has ads on TV now? It's so wild.
No.
Yeah.
I don't have the cable, so
I did see
I've
some
just been
stuff.
told this, but I watched one of them.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But it is funny. It is funny how maybe we can do a a future exploration to dunk on Scientology because they sure deserve it. But their lore is wackier than anything we've come up with on this channel so far.
Tom Cruise might show up and like
he'll do that COVID rant he did.
he'll
That was
stab
crazy.
you with his middle tooth.
He's the reptilian, right, Brandon? You're going to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get into that. I'm looking up the exact suicide method that the Heaven's Gate used.
Yeah.
Because now I'm curious because I listened to something recently about Heaven's Gate and I swear they said something about the Kool-Aid stuff. But maybe I also listened to the Jim Jones one.
I mean, they're the same kind of setup. It's just that Heaven's Gate was a bit more out there. So what happened was they
Heaven's Gate trenches classrooms. Final conclusion. Yeah. Everything is just skirting around the method that they use.
No. So 39 adherents. They died in 3 groups over 3 days.
Oh, geez.
So the participants cleaned up the prior group's deaths.
Yikes.
Among the dead was Thomas Nichols, brother of Nichelle Nichols, who was known as Uhura, on Star Trek. Yeah, that's kind of eerie. Imagine that, real quick, but just imagine that being one of the last few adherents and just dwelling with this demented guy kind of feeding off your belief and devotion. And you're there for 3 days as this is happening. That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazier than mass suicide. Just cleaning up and going okay, well, it's almost time for me to do it. It's
Yeah. I think
so.
they were injected with some kind of painkillers.
Yeah.
And some kind of a thing to make them fall asleep as well. I can't remember exactly. I was watching what's the show called? How to Be a Cult Leader, and that's where I learned most of the knowledge from that Heaven's Gate group.
Maybe we'll turn the fictitious dark into partial true crime.
Yeah, no, yeah. Okay, I found it. That's right. Okay, it's similar to Kool-Aid. It's just a different drinking something else. Members took I can't read phenobarbital mixed with applesauce or pudding and washed it down with vodka.
Yeah.
I don't want to make light of it, but his name was Applegate, so that's pretty funny.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did that on purpose.
He was like, haha. The final joke.
Yeah. So
that was the method.
So yeah, I mean, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the applesauce vodka. Same thing.
Yep. Translation. But anyway, yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, so I forgot about the Crowley Lam connection there. That's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so when we get into Tom Cruise and the elite, the reptilians, the reptiles, the lizard people,
Mark Zuckerberg, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
he's an android or a reptilian.
If you're gonna believe in any of it.
If any of the people point out, he's the one I believe the most.
Yeah.
It's his eyes, man. I don't.
Yeah, no, exactly.
not the hate, but fuck it.
There goes your Facebook profile.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
gone.
it's gone. Fictitious Dark is now blacklisted from Facebook. Nobody can share links or anything from us.
You upload the clip, it just 0 views.
Yeah.
Just wait, one of these closet doors back here behind me are going to slowly open. You just see the silhouette of Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg did not like that.
I did not
Sounds like
that.
the end of a South Park episode.
He's gonna appear on our just our monitors as his little like meta like no legs torso person.
I've never seen that.
Oh,
You haven't
it's
seen
not
that?
good.
Oh, it's so funny. It's
not
just the avatars for Meta, and it looks like a Wii person, but like just
But not as cute.
yeah. It's like they took what was kind of going on with the actual physical form of a Wii person, but took away the like cartoonish look to it, and it's just like it's just ugly. It's bad. But okay, so reptilian people. This one is pretty interesting because like there's a lot of cuckoo stuff around it. However, there's also a lot of stuff with it that has a couple things that you could argue are real and maybe just misconstrued and stuff like that. It was so as far as the idea of lizard people, that it has been a thing like super way back, kind of like old legends and cryptozoology stuff, honestly, of like back in the day.
And there was even gods in Egyptian mythology that had crocodile heads.
Exactly. So, so there's that way back then. But then, as far as the common conspiracy that like the government is lizard people and stuff like that, you have one David Icke, who he is an interesting fellow. So he's from England, and he used to be a sports broadcaster for football and or soccer, depending on where you live in the world.
The true conspiracy.
Yeah, the lizard people are the ones that that invented American football to throw off in order to discredit David Icke like in the future. But so he just he went through a lot, in his career doing like sports broadcasting, journalism, writing books and stuff. And then he got involved in like some political stuff and doing like some journalism in it. And then he interviewed it was like 2 different individuals. I don't have the exact stuff in front of me, so forgive me as far as not having concrete names and evidence. But he interviewed these 2 different people who worked with like the royal family and stuff. And so they claimed this whole like reptile people, lizard people stuff. And so then that just kind of like inspired him to just go on this lizard people conquest. So he wrote some books and everything. He ended up getting like fired from his publisher and like pretty much getting just like discredited with like in all of his professional aspects in life. And then so he became a conspiracy theorist. Nobody likes him, everyone thinks he's crazy type stuff. But like, so where a lot of with what he was going for, so there's this theory that these back in ancient times or whatever, there's parts of it that I think when people believe like the lizard people government stuff, they don't necessarily have to believe all of this. But as far as the very origin of what the idea is that these lizard aliens came to Earth, they created humanity, and then they also created a crossbreed of lizards and humans. But then there's a different side of it, which is very interesting, that they are the Nephilim. That
Okay.
they did the whole crossbreeding thing of, back biblical times. For those who don't know, the Nephilim is that is your giants, your fallen angels, your things in the Bible that there was issues when it came to crossbreeding with humans, and so then God was like, well, "We're flooding this," and had
And
hit the reset button.
Goliath and his cousins were the last of them that survived, and then David and his guys went commando and went out and killed them all.
Yeah, so
Pretty cool.
yeah, so the lizard people are like a different kind of. It seems like almost like it's a different interpretation of what the Nephilim were. So it's just like a lizard version. They maybe they were giants, maybe not, but they were like they're reptilian. They had scaly skin and all this kind of stuff.
I know in the original Jewish, it doesn't necessarily have to mean giant like in stature. It could just mean like mighty or supernatural. So
Yeah, that is correct. So yeah, there's so much stuff around the Nephilim where it's just like depending on how you define it, it could be completely different. It could be giants, it could be just weird creatures, stuff like that. But so when it comes to the lizard people, so he was claiming that these this bloodline of these reptile humans, that they pretty much became the world elite, that they are the literally the Illuminati, that they run the world and all that stuff, and they so it's about them wanting control and trying to manipulate humanity, and they're just trying to like continue their bloodline and stuff. So he was claiming that the whole like the royal family was lizard people, the Clintons are lizard people, a bunch of different prominent figures in every political system are lizard people. And then he backed that up with getting into some genealogy for a lot of the like modern day presidents over the last, whatever, 50 years or so, and how like a lot of them are related, and like distantly like cousins of and cousins of cousins of cousins, stuff like that. Like literally Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are related. And then like Barack Obama's related to George W. Bush. And
Yeah, I think the only one that wasn't related was like JFK or something like that.
yeah, interesting. What happened there?
Yeah.
So,
but Nixon was.
Yeah.
It's funny because going off of what you're saying is that obviously like you were keeping an open mind. It's not that every single one of the people who believe this believe all these elements, because it's not necessarily that they're saying they're literally all lizards that have human skin. It's just that they may have traces of that in them, because you couldn't like crossbreed. You probably couldn't and maintain that for however long is being purported. So,
well,
but it's just that they come from that. Some people might believe that they're just of that issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're about to take a dive into conspiracy territory here, boys and girls. So, the whole reptilian thing is they're shapeshifters. So he has the idea that either like almost everyone in politics is either a lizard person or is possessed by a lizard person, which like that part kind of confuses me a little bit. Like, okay, are they like got some kind of ghosty powers? Like, what's going on there? But anyway, so how they become lizard people, and he's saying they're all the elite, how they are able to shapeshift into a human is by drinking human blood.
But this gets into some sticky stuff.
So what's some other conspiracies and stuff that people talk about when it comes to the elite and drinking children's blood and
I did say
human
something
blood
about earlier. It's kind of, I think that's why the reptilian is a lot of people are very dismissive, because it is a hop, skip, and a jump away from some of that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like you get into this dicey territory of like there's some pretty like questionable things when it comes to the behavior and actual things that are slowly becoming less like cuckoo conspiracies and more like I don't know, especially after the last couple years. But it's just like, to me, it's like, man, this sounds like almost like these conspiracy stuff sound kind of like legit as far as the idea of a bloodline and them trying to maintain power and making sure that they're always have somebody that's within their bloodline in these positions of power and manipulating and all this kind of stuff. You go into ancient times and there is just so much when it comes to that, royalty, stuff like that. But then you get a little out there when you start saying they're lizards and they have lizard tongues and they're the eyeballs and there's some really real world fragments of things in this theory that I think is where it really propels and makes a lot of people believe in it. And then you got the outlandish lizard stuff.
And if you want to get really cuckoo, let's go an even deeper layer.
Cuckoo.
So, what if the idea is that some conspiracies, when they originate... Sorry, let me rephrase. Sometimes when people put out something, when it originates from the source, like the fragment that you're talking about, is true, but because it's true, a false flag occurs where people purposely make things more extreme and ridiculous so that it won't be believed on its face, because instead of going, oh, there might be some bloodline or ruling elite that kind of keeps themselves in power, which most people I think would go, oh, that kind of makes sense. You say, well, reptilians run the government, and people are like, haha, that's stupid, and then they don't think about it.
Exactly.
So I do wonder how many true things maybe were talked about and then over time were purposely false flagged, exaggerated, or unintentionally exaggerated. It happens.
So one thing that's also kind of funny is like maybe this was a simple game of telephone where it really got out of hand like this, because what is cold-blooded and like robotic and has no emotions and is a psychopath? Lizards. You look at lizards, they're the kind of like, as far as like animal life and life on Earth, they're the most like psychotic, like they don't have emotions.
Because like, insects are alien. Insects are alien. They're not we don't view insects as psychotic. We just view them as unearthly.
Yeah.
But reptiles, I think, are the closest you can get to like anthropomorphic, while still being like kind of foreign.
Yeah. So like, what if somehow this is just like one big like arc to like a comedy movie of somebody who was dealing with some type of political scenario way back when, and they got screwed over by this family that is infested and everything, and he's like, they're psychopaths, they have no feelings, they don't care about people, they're like lizard people. And then somebody was like, what did you say?
He's like, I did see Elizabeth Bathory drinking blood the other day.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff.
So it really could have been like this just got out of hand real quick, or who knows, as far as maybe they are lizard people.
Well, I do think, and I'd hate to be the cliche, because I feel like I've kind of played this role in almost all the episodes, is that it's true. I mean, that's true, but hey, the psychological aspect, is that, like you were saying, Brandon, is that this person, when you perceive this fact of like, oh, so they literally don't care about anything other than keeping themselves in power. They're like, they have no heart. They're completely like cold and almost like inhuman.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yeah. Um, you know, humanity, we're very good at saying, oh, this group or this group or this is pure evil and it's inhuman and it's not from us. We're the good guys. That's all bad. We're good at like creating the barriers so we don't have to think about the fact that we could become that. So the whole concept of the reptilian is almost like, well, wait, there's this like maybe there's like a ruling group that just stays in power and manipulates everything and doesn't like care or is at least ignorant to everyone's suffering because they're so disconnected. They can't be human. There has to
Yeah.
be something about them that is different. And so psychologically it's easier to like go, oh, well then they're possessed or reptilians or something, or there's something, they drink blood, they're like vampires or something.
It's like it's a cope.
It's a cope, really.
Yeah.
Well, every conspiracy theory has like just the tiniest shred of truth to it that's just old and expanded and, you know, trying to get as much out of it as they can. And you know, that game of telephone seems like a very believable cause of lizard men if, you know, it started out that way.
Yeah. As far as I have one more bonus type of alien.
Let me see if I can...
This one's interesting because I was kind of just going based off of, to make it easy, a list of alleged extraterrestrials, which was a very small list. Some of them talked about cryptids being aliens, like Bigfoot, stuff like that. I didn't bother like really getting into the nitty gritty with that stuff. Maybe we can save that for another time.
I feel like that's just kind of, it's just trying to lump a bunch of things together, in my opinion. Like cryptids, it's like, if they are like maybe, but like it doesn't seem like the catch-all that people might think it is. Like, oh, they're all aliens. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just like you said, all of us humans just trying to classify something that we don't understand. We're like alien, you know.
But so this little bonus one, we got Nordic aliens.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
I don't think I've ever heard of this.
Well, we already we brought up one side of the H word. Let's bring up the other side, Brandon. Go ahead.
Okay, so the thing for this in UFOlogy, Nordic alien is the name given to alleged humanoid extraterrestrials purported to come from the Pleiades, who resemble Nordic Scandinavians. Alleged contactees described them as being 6 to 7 feet tall, about 2 meters, with long blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. George Adamski is credited with being among the first to claim contact with Nordic aliens in the mid-1950s, and scholars note that the mythology of extraterrestrials' visitation from beings with features described as Aryan often include claims of telepathy and benevolence and physical beauty. So I think I'm an alien, guys.
It's interesting to me how right, like now it's just getting weird. Now we're like, I'm thinking like all these different, in the 50s, right after the 40s and the 30s. And it's like you can look at it from two ways. Either it's this kind of aspect of like the ideal, the Norse gods, right? Like the ideal, the beauty stuff. But you can look at it from the other way as like, this was inhuman. This aspect is inhuman because of some things that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like you get into that. Maybe there's more to the whole German history. Maybe someone's influenced from an alien that came down and told him some things.
And there's that, and then we know that good old Adolf was an occultist. He believed in a lot of really weird things like frozen Earth theory, and he believed in these kind of Aryan super being things. So maybe he was a UFOologist and he didn't even realize because it was pre the 50s, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I
So,
think he even like dabbled in a little bit of demonology too.
Oh yeah,
oh,
for
well, yeah,
sure.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So
Yeah, a lot of them did.
yeah. So that's my presentation of what I learned about aliens today.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Josiah, what did you learn about aliens today?
Okay. So take everything Brandon said, throw it all out. It's not true. None of it's all bullshit. Aliens aren't alien at all. You see, the truth is that aliens are one of two things. Aliens don't come from faraway places. They, in fact, either come from an alternate version of our Earth, where evolution went differently, or they are, in fact, future versions of us that are time traveling back for one of two reasons. Either they're just trying to do what anyone with a time machine would do and explore the past of your own species, as we would with Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, Guppies, or maybe they have some problems going on that their species is having troubles with, say fertility or climate change or something, and they need to come back to us to either find solutions to their fertility. Hence the probing aspect. A lot of people feel like violated on a deeper level than just an examination, like a medical one, in some cases. So it's either they're trying to like find the answer to that, or they think that if they, it's this concept that's been used in fiction sometimes, is that the future, they're trying to create like a paradox where they're going to kind of steal our environment and be able to live, and then we're going to be in some like hellish scape. So that this could even go into a conspiracy about why climate change is occurring. It's not really all that, but to focus on the first topic, the idea that they're from an alternate dimension that of an Earth that is vibrating at a different frequency to ours, because when you really think about it, like I'm going to pose the questions to you, is that what are the odds that in the vast universe that there was a planet that developed life that had such a similar humanoid composition to us? A lot of people find that improbable. So maybe it's more likely that, similar to what we've talked about with cryptids, like what we talked about with Bigfoot, where maybe we vibrate at certain frequencies, and then when it weakens or something kind of flickers, we see a bit of the other side. And this other side, it could be that since evolution went a different route, we do have these craft that are flying around, and we do look different, or there are beings that are just parallel alternate paths, and that's why we don't find them so easily, is because they literally are there and then they're not there. It's not, they don't even leave, they just cease to exist in our plane. That is something that people have purported for a long time, actually. There's not a whole lot of data around it, but the interdimensional hypothesis started out way back in the 1940s. And even in the late 19th century, there was this idea of metaphysical planes. H.P. Blavatsky was this Russian mystic, and she came up with this concept. And then in 1969, the book Passport to Magonia, the scholar Vallée argues for parallel realities, and there's 5 arguments for this, and those are the unexplained encounters are far more numerous than what our observation has shown, to be the case. The human body structure is not likely to have originated, not biologically adapted to our planet or to space travel. So that's the whole War of the Worlds, you would die to the disease type thing. The extension of the phenomena throughout history demonstrates that they're not a contemporary phenomena. And the apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time mean that it's less likely that they're just a super advanced race. Debatable, but this is what the guy believes. Um, the other one, which I think Joe Rogan posited this recently. A small time podcaster, he's trying to like cozy up to us.
Maybe you heard.
No, but
Maybe a
he
guest star in the future.
maybe if we say some wild enough shit. But he posited this I think might be just as likely as that, but I think it's more intriguing for the simple aspect of what if the UFOs and the aliens are in fact future versions of us. And the reason I find this fascinating is because we talked about, okay, what if Bigfoot is like our past? Like this kind of vision of our past that we're seeing. What if these are a vision from our future? They've time traveled for various reasons, fertility, research into our climate, just general science. And this is our future because that's why they're just right here and we don't necessarily detect them coming from space. Why would they be, there's certain cases where why would they be sloppy enough to be caught if they're so good at avoiding all these other sensors and it's only very rare occasions? And if they're future versions, we'll think about it. Like, let's take a look. What are we using right now? We're using, webcams and screens, and we're looking at the screens, and we're looking at these all the time, and we're not needing to use our muscles as much because everything's being done for us. And a lot of 70% of men between 16 and 21 are virgins, and so maybe we won't have to have sex. We'll just engineer things biologically. And so what if this idea is that over time, over the millennia, our brains, because we're absorbing so much information, our stimulation anxiety brains just keep growing until we are able to regulate it all with chips or AI or something. And so we got this mechanical type mind, but we don't need to have sex, so we don't have sex organs. But because we're looking at screens, we're like completely in this kind of realm. Our eyes start to like develop bigger, and so maybe the grays are just the future versions of us 500,000 years from now. And that's why they are humanoid and similar to us, but are, they're smaller. They're so advanced, they don't need to be able to physically defend themselves anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of basic idea from those 2 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've heard this Joe Rogan talk about this and stuff, and yeah, he brings up some good points as far as like how intrigued, obsessed we are becoming with gender, and specifically gender neutral, and trying to eliminate gender characteristics, and we're all the same. Every depiction of aliens, there's hardly anything where you see like a depiction of an alien where they don't look all the same. And
or that there's very rare times where you'll find honest accounts of them having genitalia. It's usually they use tools, or they're so abstract that they don't possess the same equipment.
Yeah, because it's like, what if this potential future of humanity, that it's so far in the future that the idea of having sexual organs is like, wait, what? Like, that's like just stupid. So weird. And so it's like they come back here and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Just poking and prodding us like we're cattle.
Yeah.
Which there's this movie, I haven't watched it, but I did watch a scene out of curiosity, and I'll share what the top comment was in a moment because I think it's applicable to what you've just said, Rick. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's called The Fire in the Sky. I think it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it came out in '96.
I actually just watched that like 2 months ago, maybe.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So the scene where they're doing the evaluation on him, of course, like it's the classic, like he's freaking out, and they're just kind of like doing all this horrific stuff to him, and the top comment on it was, I forget what they said. They said, I think they were in vet school, and they said they showed this to us to show us the potential point of view of a non-human life form if it's under like a procedure or in a like a lab environment, because we can't perceive what they perceive, so to them they're freaking out because they don't understand like what they're doing and what we're doing to them. And so I found that kind of interesting in relation to that scene, because I think that was the point, is that they've done this 100 times. You know, it's like, you don't, there's, if a scientist's in a lab and a rat dies of disease or something and he dissects it, obviously the rat's dead, but you understand my point, is he's done it 1,000 times. But for that creature, they're like, what is going on, you know?
Yeah, it's like, because it's the same as like dissecting and experimenting, but also the same as far as eating. You know, we just toss the lobster in the boiling water, and you know, that's just what you do. And the lobster's like, oh my god! So
he's literally boiling alive. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So I mean, perhaps those two explanations are more palatable to some people who believe that we are alone in the universe and we're a freak accident. Perhaps they are in fact us.
The one thing when you were starting to go into it, where it just like immediately I started thinking about the South Park episode where future humanity, they didn't necessarily look like aliens with this, but it was the idea that future humanity, the economy like sucks. So they were time traveling back to the early 2000s to get jobs and then just send money. So it was just a big joke as far as like immigration and like like illegal immigrants and stuff. And so then you have all the rednecks be like, need to jobs, and so it's just the whole thing of just more illegal aliens coming in.
In two Chris Nolan movies, in Tenet, a big plot line is that they want to steal our time because they've screwed time so bad. They need to like steal our part of the space-time continuum so that they don't die out. So they're literally killing their past to ensure their weird paradox future. And then in Interstellar, the aliens were actually future humans that had just begun to live in gravity wells or whatever.
Yeah.
So. I honestly forgot about that completely. I should rewatch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to,
I don't,
like, put more of a point on, you know, the whole, you know, sex thing disappearing. The end of South Park, it's a bunch of guys jumping in a pile, making sure that, you know, that we cease to exist and there's no more past us.
Yeah, they become gays.
Yeah. All right, back in the pile, guys.
Yeah. So
I do think that's very interesting, because when you view it from that way, it's almost like you can. The reason I find that compelling is you can almost, of course, like once you have the premise, you can work your way backward from it. But I do find that like these certain aspects of our society, and like as you become more advanced, you become less attached to our biological core. You know, there's even like conspiracies that a lot of the I don't want to go too deep into this. There's a lot of conspiracies about the idea of like the certain preservatives and certain things that are put into our food. You know, as I have mentioned to Brandon, is that they've done studies about cities that have more contraceptives that go into the water supply. So the
dare I say it?
Those hormones get absorbed, and so it can lower your testosterone levels. So there's a conspiracy that
they're making the freaking frogs gay.
perhaps the because it's harmless, because you don't need the testosterone. That the idea is that if you lower the testosterone levels, rebellion is less likely. So wouldn't the government want to make sure that only the general populace is more docile and the military is more is more physically fit? But of course that's just like a random thing. But it is interesting. A lot of this is very interesting.
Too, that that our generation is not having kids like the past generations have had kids. That the numbers are down. I'm like, it all makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of that part's kind of interesting as far as the generations of the child population going down and down. There's so many different things that play with that. It's an actual like our food supply, our water supply actually affecting our hormones, microplastics, all sorts of stuff affecting our hormones, which is affecting our fertility. But then also there's all these psychological things going on in our culture that is affecting our mindset of fertility. And it's a different angle of like wanting to be fertile and wanting to have children, and it's affecting that.
The economy, it's harder to have children when you have less money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, our economy is affecting it big time as well. There's multiple different factors that are attacking our generation.
And
what's to say that moving on further, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and the children are just population is going to dwindle when they have nothing. So maybe in 100,000 years or whatever, that's when we start sending people back to study what happened.
And of course, I don't necessarily believe it would be that linear. Of course, I think at some point you'd like societies, if this is the dominant society of this country, everything crumbles. You do have a reset at some point, but but perhaps that's the case. We don't know. I just think it's an interesting idea. And then it would be a lot easier to engineer, if you believe the Roswell stuff. It'd be a lot easier to reverse engineer future human creation, because it's at least a similar cultural mindset base than from the other side of the galaxy, because it's a completely different. So it'd be a lot harder to reverse engineer that.
So what if there's an attempt of reverse engineering actual aliens, and it's not them coming here to visit, it's us, whatever kind of technology, and we're plucking them out of a different universe. We're plucking them out
so
of
your theory is that
something.
we have developed a net to kind of like a stop sign. We kind of like catch their ships real quick, and they realize what's going on and they leave.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So it's
like
maybe it's not them willingly being here. Some of them are. It's like a fishing line where some of them they'll grab it for a little bit, but you lose them and they go out. So you see them for a blip and they leave. Some of them are just stuck here and they're like, where are we? What's going on? Let's figure it out. Grab that cow and let's what is this?
This is the planet. This is the planet that we can kind of use the stars or the life or something to figure out where we're at.
Are you trying to say that 5G is responsible for catching all aliens now?
Most definitely, and I'm sure it's probably a factor in making even more frogs gay.
I know the a theory I threw around, I think randomly one time, was that it's like the kind of classic, the idea that we're like the TV show, so they can like long range monitor us, but they're not visible. And then it's essentially like a zoo, and then whenever it's like when someone drives through a fence or something at a zoo, they're not supposed to be there, so it's illegal. So they're like, oh shit, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, I think it was Joe Rogan that I heard he joked about.
That's right, that was.
What if it's like college kids that they're just like, let's go, and that's why they're drunk, they're crashing their craft, and then just exposing all this stuff. Like that would be pretty funny.
I mean, that's essentially all my thoughts on those two topics. Unless you guys have anything more to add, I think it's an intriguing premise.
Well, some of the ideas that you've introduced fit with the ideology, if I can talk, of poltergeists. Of them, shaking enough to match our frequency and popping in for just a tiny little bit, and then they shake back out.
Yeah.
How plausible do you think that is? If that's maybe like a small idea of us seeing aliens as poltergeists.
I think if we go off what we know of quantum mechanics, which of course science always changes, I never am going to claim that, I'm never even going to claim that we know what we know.
Yeah, we don't know
fully, right? So quantum mechanics, the theory is that because the universe is ever expanding, it's so big that eventually you reach a point where stuff will start to duplicate because there's only so many combinations of things that can exist.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you go, if the universe grows to be the size of like, I don't know, it's hard to even grasp because it's infinity. But the idea is that eventually you get duplicates. And
What would that mean?
so
Like a duplicate frequency that might be able to just touch ours just barely, and so we see
Mhm.
tiny little.
It could either be like, yeah, it could either be like a twin
Mhm.
thing. But again, just because the combination to create Earth duplicates doesn't mean that the combination to create us exactly the same duplicates. So the idea would be that we have like a twin or something, or even just the idea that it like maybe it is like layers, like the universes are kind of stacked on top of each other, and because we all vibrate. So like again, it's like the thing people say to like really mess with you. They say like, well, technically when you touch something, you're not really you're manipulating the atoms around it with your own atoms. Like your energy fields connect, and then so
Yeah.
I do think that things vibrate, and not to get like all Wiccan New Age on you, but you know everything has energy. You know, I do think it's true. I do think that things have energy, and I think it goes beyond the conventional understanding. So I do think that I'm not gonna say that it would be that easy for us to cross, but the way I like to view it is that have you ever seen that stuff where like galaxies will go through each other?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, as far as we can tell, like destroy everything because you would think like they would destroy each other, but they actually kind of like their own like gravity kind of holds it together, and they kind of like pass through and then reform as they go through.
Kind of like oil and water in a sense.
Mm-hmm. So if you view that as being like completely legit possible, is it not possible that if it's because they're vibrating and they're in like gravitational fields that we are vibrating, and so maybe something could like slip through from somewhere like a higher dimensional tier, come through real quick, and then so I do think it's plausible.
Definitely.
You know?
Wait, so I actually haven't heard this theory of you saying that the galaxies they just pass through each other?
Yeah, like obviously we can't tell if like
Is this just a
Stuff
theory, or
is-
did they have an actual
no.
reason to believe this?
no, they've seen it. Like you
Yeah.
see it in the skies, like galaxies will get close, and then they'll kind of pass through. And like obviously we can't tell if like planets or stuff are destroyed, but it's not like all the stars are colliding and exploding or anything because they keep their consistent shapes.
Now that
So
that one's very interesting, especially because like just trying to kind of figure out a more physical means to the idea of like ghosts and poltergeists and demons and angels and that kind of stuff. That I feel like changes a lot because of the idea that there, like, is it another dimension type thing that's going on? Is it it just kind of, it brings more to the idea of something that is there but isn't quite there, having a more of a physical form than what you would normally think.
you know, I think with you look at cultures with their spirit walks. You look at ayahuasca trips and stuff like that. We think the soul does. I say we. I'm just gonna say like the Western society doesn't necessarily subscribe to the soul as a fact anymore. We used to. The soul isn't a fact because we can't physically observe it, but maybe we can't physically observe it because the soul is just energy within us that vibrates, and it's in another realm. And that's why we can like feel the energy shift in a room. We can feel like drawn to people and things. Like maybe it's just biological. Maybe. But maybe it's that this kind of idea of like maybe the afterlife exists in that once you have no physical form, the soul defaults, and consciousness, whatever it is, defaults to where the soul is, so it's a higher dimension. Perhaps that's how it works. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, so this has got my brain going around because I haven't heard this one before. But My background with being raised Mormon, there's some more out there beliefs where a lot of people start to be like, what do Mormons believe?
In between
And
Scientology and Jehovah's Witness.
yeah, kind of. Where, and this is part of it where, like, growing up in it, I was like pretty much a young adult by the time like I really actually heard about this, and I did hear about it as a kid, but never went into detail. So I was like, wait, what? Like, I was confused myself as I was getting older. There's literally like a hymn about a planet called Kolob, and that planet is where God lives.
The Lost Tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it's like I've never really gotten a very clear answer as far as the exact belief. From what I understood is like, so this is heaven technically, and heaven is literally a physical different planet. Mm-hmm. So that, and so like, just saying this idea that a physical planet and like this whole like universe is meshing and stuff like that, and this idea of spirits and spiritual things being, you know, your typical ghost stuff. They disappear, they vanish, they can go through walls, that kind of stuff. Taking all that idea, mixing it with this idea of universes being able to mesh together in these different dimensions, but then also throwing in this Mormon idea of this Kolob planet. I don't know. It's got my mind spinning. I'm not necessarily proclaiming anything right now. I don't know. This is interesting.
Kolob, yeah, and then of course Battlestar Galactica was created based on the Mormon religious kind of ideas.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the whole
so
idea of Battlestar Galactica is that they're the lost tribe that's trying to go to Kobol.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check Battlestar Galactica
Yeah.
out. I know I've always known about Battlestar Galactica. I've just never actually watched it.
The original show's much more into the Mormon stuff. The new show does have it, but it's the new show's quite good until the last episode. So
Okay, interesting.
Typical of TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing as far as like, the older I get, the more everything meshes together. Like everything, you know, your initial thought of like, oh, combining aliens and God stuff and religion, like, ugh, cringy, you know, that's weird. That's Scientology type stuff. What weirdos, you know? And it's like, the older I get, the more stuff I hear, the things that it's like, well, it actually kind of makes sense as far as if you believe in these types of things, how like you just kind of see these connections and everything. And technically, the definition of alien is, I don't have it in front of me to say the exact words, but you know, it's foreign. It's not from here. It's over there. You know, yeah. So it's like, by definition, God, you could say, is an alien. By definition, you could say that like the whole idea of like Jesus Christ coming down here and doing what he did, that was like an alien coming down here and everything. And I do believe some people actually believe that Jesus was like some type of alien, a different species or whatever.
Again, not to bring up another pop culture reference, but I know the original drafts, after they changed it from being a straight aliens movie, but Prometheus they were going to be more explicit about the fact that Jesus was an engineer and we killed him, and that's why they want to kill us.
Okay.
Your mileage may vary on if that plot point would have worked or not.
Yeah,
but...
I think he was supposed to be like a half human, half engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's funny. I feel like that almost kind of explains like what the engineers are wearing. The
robes and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of this sounds really freaking kooky, honestly, but it's just interesting. So, I don't know.
We're going whole hog.
Yeah, we're going whole hog today. I feel like this is actually blending real well into what we're getting into with Rick's subject for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll take over from here.
I guess was
Any last things you guys want to
one last
throw
little
in?
thing is you specifically mentioned poltergeists, and I think it very well. It does line up with literally the theory video that I have on this channel of are cryptids actually poltergeists. That theory definitely applies to aliens as well, as far as the idea of somebody just putting their energy into this thing and then that thing becoming a manifestation. So it's like the story of aliens, whether initially, there was something that happened that was maybe extraterrestrial, questionable, but then more stuff happened because people were giving their energy to it and believing it so hard that the energy culmination then manifested in some form of a UFO, a gray, some type of being appearing that looked alien or whatever. And then there's the whole idea of maybe some actual beings attaching themselves to a poltergeist and then interacting with you, which I would say makes sense a lot when it comes to UFO stuff. But that's my 2 cents about specifically the word poltergeist in connection to this. Whereas you can take it away with what you're specifically going to get into.
All right. So my little topic that I was looking into was aliens. Could they be angels or possibly demons? And so I've always had friends that were pretty religious and had multiple backgrounds in theology, and I've had a couple of friends talk about them being angels here to warn us about impending doom or things that could happen. And then I've also had a different group of friends tell me that they're demons, and that's why they come from the sky. They're fallen angels in a sense. So I looked into the subject just a little bit to kind of give me a little bit more knowledge, and I found a couple of different articles. The first one I found is from Press Connections, which is an online newspaper for a small town in New York. I believe it's Binghamton, if I can say that right. But the article is about Reverend Barry Downing. He's a pastor emeritus at Northminster Presbyterian Church. He's been talking about UFOs for the past 50 years. He has a couple of books that are called Bible and the Flying Saucers and Biblical UFO Revelations. He believes that, of course, the Pentagon is not telling us, or they don't have any idea with what kind of force they're dealing with. And if Moses was around, Moses would say, "Amen to that." That was one of Mary's quotes. The government has pointed to some advanced technology, and they're not sure pilots have interacted with or encountered. One of his quotes says, "I don't expect the Pentagon statement that aliens are here, and I'm okay with that because the God of the Bible doesn't walk onto the human stage and say, 'Hello, folks, I'm here.'" So he kind of explains that if aliens are angels, they're not going to come in and tell us that they're angels. He further goes on and says, maybe the angels were ETs or aliens in understanding all along, but they wouldn't use that language in biblical times. The biblical people were, not part of that space age talk. They're pre-space age, as he would say. So to solve the problem is how do we translate it or interpret the Bible? He says the parting of the Red Sea, as written on Exodus 14, could have happened as suggested. Though the ETs did carry out Exodus, Downing said, they were in some kind of spaceship called a pillar of fire by the Bible. The whole Exodus worked out fine. So in his mind, he's saying that the humans back in the day had no way of describing their encounter with angels, which could be aliens, and they've intermixed the idea of the two. So that's something that's pretty interesting that I never really thought about, in the past, of especially with the parting of the Red Sea. I'm not too great on biblical talk, but didn't that get the the Jews out of Egypt
It
Mhm.
to
did.
save them. Yeah.
The Pharaoh let them go after the 10 plagues, and then
Hmm.
his heart hardened again, and he decided to go kill them. And then the pillar of fire kind of blocked him for a bit, and then the pillar of fire left right when the Hebrew people were about to get to the other side, and then he goes into the gap, and then it
Yeah.
ceases to be parted and kills everyone except
Yeah.
him, I think. Um, or maybe it does kill him. No, it does kill him as well. Yeah, in the
Yeah.
story.
In the story, but that's that to me is kind of like a very plausible idea to fit aliens and angels together. Downing continues to say it's possible that angels operated from a cloud of heaven or fire. After all, wouldn't God want his angels to fly in more than just clouds? He says there's something funny flying in our skies. They are great spaceships. Why do they have them flying saucers or anything like that? Why wouldn't, why is it just clouds of heaven? So his idea is that back in the day, they confused flying saucers or spaceships as clouds of heaven because they came in from the sky. Um, One of his last little statements that I have here is he says, while talking about unknown technology and government holding the secrets, he quotes Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
Mm.
So he has faith that his, idea that has here is true. And he believes that the government is holding us, back from finding the true nature of these aliens or angels.
Yeah.
So do you guys have an idea or anything that you would think that could counteract what he's thinking or possibly, add to more of what he's saying?
I think it's interesting. What I would say is that if you go off the scripture, which he seems to be going off of, the
Hmm.
angels would take human form. I think it was that's the misconception, is that, yeah, like there's like this meme about the true form of angels, and yeah, like their energy is like frightening to behold, but there's
Yeah.
specific types of angels, some which are more quote unquote Lovecraftian, but a lot of the time
Yeah.
they would walk among us as they would maybe have like burning eyes or something, but that's about
Hmm.
it. However, if you want to take something from the Book of Revelation, one of the creepiest passages is that a star falls, wormwood, and it poisons the water. And then, of course, in the chapter about uh, the dragon trying to eat the mother, he sweeps a third of the stars from the sky, and those are implied to be the a third of the angels joined the devil.
Hmm.
So I think that maybe if you want to go off, if we're just using the biblical and the Judaic scriptures, if the angels can look like us, except the seraphim and the cherubim and the wheels, those ones are obviously their own forms in heaven or whatever. Then perhaps if we want to piggyback and kind of wedge this,
Yeah.
the Greys would be demons because they have been corrupted and they aren't quite the same as they were. Like maybe Lucifer used to be the most beautiful angel and became corrupted. He lost his wings, or Dante gained 3 heads, or became a dragon, or
Hmm.
he was the serpent. They tie that in. So perhaps the Greys or aliens are in fact the fallen angels who are corrupted, and so they're like not quite the form,
Yeah.
the righteous form anymore.
Which is also
Yeah.
very interesting since fallen angels, Nephilim, reptile people, aliens.
Yeah, it all circles exactly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
all circles back around. So
Yeah.
I do think that's an interesting idea. I think that obviously some I looked it up. Did some research. Some accounts of like the flying objects in the sky are from like weird, not quite verified materials, but clearly there are like uh, it's been done to death in fiction and speculation. But the gods from the sky are aliens, or the aliens are the gods.
Definitely.
And I think Occam's razor would suggest they are perhaps linked, though I'm not going to take a stance on that.
All right. Well, if that wasn't quite enough Bible talk about angels, I found one more article from Fox News.
Yes.
You mean the modern day Bible?
Yeah.
We're gonna get Alex Jones, Bill O'Reilly, and Joe Rogan.
They're
all
making
on
the
show.
freaking angels gay.
All right.
Got a
the
birds
article
on
is called- The article is called "Angels in Our Midst." One scientist explains why the Bible supports extraterrestrials. So, the article is about Dr. Hugh Ross. He has a podcast that's called Lighthouse Faith, and I can't remember what his faith that he what faith he is, but just to continue straight with the article, we'll start with Dr. Ross makes a convincing case that angels are beings that have existed throughout eternity as God's messengers, and that they operate like any other beings would, who are not confined to our space-time definitions, or dimensions. Sorry. Scientists know there are more dimensions than humans can access. So this is going to tie into part of what you were talking about earlier, Josiah. Ross writes in Salvo magazine, according to the Bible, these creatures differ from humans in that they are not constrained by either the known laws of physics or the known space-time dimensions. Rather, they exist in a realm distinct from our universe, yet have granted power to enter the human realm for brief episodes, either physical or non-physical form. Maybe poltergeist? Maybe a little bit of that frequency. They're able to tap into that frequency that we have yet to discover on our own, and they're able to tap into it whenever they want to come in and view us or see what we're doing. He also continues writing, according to the Bible, these creatures differ in humans than that. Or I read that part. On his podcast, Lighthouse Faith, he says, if you got a casual agent beyond space and time that created the universe, that casual agent, God, could create other things outside the universe, even grant them power to come into the universe and enter the human realm. So it's certainly scientifically plausible. So what he's saying is, we have someone like God that has power outside of our realm of thought, or what we know currently, that wouldn't he be able to grant power to these aliens, aka angels, to come protect us?
Yeah.
And this will go with what you were saying earlier. He further says, in the Bible, angels are God's messengers and ground soldiers, if you will, carrying on God's business. There are three different types: the cherubim, the seraphim, and then the living creatures. The cherubim guarded the entrance to the Garden of Eden after Adam and Eve were expelled for disobeying God, where the seraphim were only mentioned in the Bible as beings who continually worship the Lord by saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Isaiah 6:3. And the living creatures, which are us and animals. So going from his point of view, he's adding almost more of like a scientific approach where, would it be scientific or philosophical approach, that he believes that if there's an almighty creator that lives outside of our space and time and can give that has these powers to create, wouldn't he be able to give these beings unknown power and unknown ability to enter our realm of existence? And wouldn't that make them angels, possibly? What do you guys feel about Dr. Ross's ideas, where I added it because he kind of piggybacks off the idea of what Pastor Downing was saying, and this kind of adds a little bit more detail in, kind of like a idea where it shows that's a little bit plausible in how it could fit into what scientists can tell us.
This is related, but it seems it might seem a little off topic at first. I'll try to expand. Something interesting is that there's like it's almost like, I know some people look at it cynically because it's like the rule of prophecy is never say exactly when something is going to happen, because eventually it will. So in the book of Revelation, it says that no man may know the time when the end shall occur. And as our society becomes more atheistic, wouldn't it just be like so ironic if all these signs and wonders are completely misinterpreted or viewed as something other than what they are? So there's maybe these it's like the whole Mothman thing, like but it's this idea that like there's these warning signs, and and the Lord is telling you directly, like, hey, like, pay attention. And because the end cannot happen till we're all and until no one thinks they know the end, that's when the end happens. Which I think is a psychological truth too. Usually catastrophic things happen when you least suspect it. And so perhaps the irony is that there's all these signs and wonders and all these phenomena, and we just refuse to view them as what they are, which is that they are from the Lord, and they are in fact like, oh, they're just like gray guys from another planet far away. It's completely scientific. It's not religious. Or, oh, that's just a hallucination. There's nothing like spiritual that exists. And so as we have a growing mindset of that, perhaps that is what both of these guys are kind of have in their minds as well. I don't know.
Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to stop us from going down that path. And
yeah, perhaps.
I think usually, from what I understand, is that science and faith do not go hand in hand. And I believe that almost, I think it's Dr. Ross is trying to bridge that gap of, using the two different prominent ideologies of our human race to kind of show his what is faith, and how he believes that that aliens are angels, and maybe in the future he would be able to connect more of the faith-based ideologies to science.
Well, that's one thing that people say that all the time as far as the faith versus science stuff, and honestly that just makes no sense. I understand as far as people that are very more on the science side of things, where they're against the faith stuff. I can see how that's where it kind of happens. But as far as a faith-based person claiming that science and is it's over there, that's not what I'm about. It's but the whole idea of God created the universe and literally made the planets and made the stars. It's that doesn't include science.
One of my favorite things is the idea of the music of the spheres, is that each planet hums at its own frequency, which it does. We can listen to the radio waves and they all have different sounds, and a lot of them are really creepy. But it's almost like the entire universe is the vibrations are a part of the larger composition.
Yeah, so it's just whatever the truth is of things, it all coincides. So if the faith standpoint is the 100% truth, well then that means that science does have a place that belongs within that. It's not just fabrication, there's legit things, obviously science, there's certain facts about science that change all the time, but whatever the truth exactly is about whatever, is out there. We just might not know it at this moment in time. But yeah, did you have a thought, Josiah?
It's just a real quick thing. Again, I apologize,
Oh,
but
you're
I
good.
just
I was gonna change it, go into
our
a different
neurons
thing,
are
so.
firing on all these different levels. I also just want to make a comment because it too often gets forgotten, but it was the Catholic Church and it was religion that inspired the Renaissance. You wouldn't have these great works of art and these great thinkers without the church wanting to explore the natural mysteries of the world. They wanted to find out how things worked in creation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we reached a point where we thought, well, obviously, like, you can't. Obviously, there's like reasons why we reached the point of this separation. But the initial point was to study the universe and learn how it works so you could better understand the glory of what was around you. Um, So,
Yeah. But so as far as the idea of angels, demons, aliens, the same thing, question mark. I would more so lean towards the idea that they're not angels, that they're demons. Because as far as anything when it comes to aliens and UFOs and stuff, there's always some type of energy and feeling in the air when people have experiences that it does not feel right. It feels wrong. I understand there's the whole thing as far as like the angel of like be not afraid. Yeah, I get that. But one thing when it comes to aliens and whatnot is people being so fascinated and idolizing a lot of this. Demons are deceitful. They want you to believe that they're angels. They want you to believe that they're whatever it is that suits them in that moment. The idea of I'm going to believe that in these extraterrestrials, I just want to meet an extraterrestrial. I want to do this. Or the idea of I believe in Bigfoot. I'm searching for Bigfoot. I want to know Bigfoot. Or whatever, Mothman, anything and everything. A demon who has the power to be able to almost, shapeshift in a way, manipulate how he appears to you. Well, of course he's going to appear to you as whatever the thing is that you want to meet, the thing that you are idolizing, the thing that you're putting your energy into. Because when it comes down to it, demons want interaction. They want to interact with you and be able to whatever it is exactly that their purpose that they're trying to get across is, it starts with interaction.
I don't want to assume your stance on this because this is obviously a big, far-reaching thing. It's kind of regarding what the whole channel is about. But let's take the concept of the guardian angel. The concept is that they are invisible and you never see them, but you can kind of feel them. So your stance would be that the best way to handle spirituality is to be open but not actively seek things, because then you could be deceived by manifestations because you're trying to know and there are things you're not meant to know. Would you say that is ultimately your stance, is that seeking too hard is actually negative, is that you shouldn't do that because ultimately
I wouldn't say that you shouldn't. I would say tread lightly. I would say be
absolutely.
careful. Because the nefarious entities will always take advantage of the situation. No matter what, like, almost sounds off topic, but whatever it is that is a good thing when it comes to like politics and government, the types of government, the best type of government is still corruptible. So there is no best type of government technically, because it's like the more power there is, no matter what, there's always some form of power, and nefarious entities are always going to go and try to grab that and seize control and stuff like that. That's why, like, for example, communism is one of the worst ones, simply because the power is so centralized and it is only one group of people. Because it's based on
people's wishes, their strong desires for this utopia is what allows people to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So
and there's so much wishful thinking that everybody will work together, and there's like, it almost takes away from the individualized aspect of a person's individual want, whereas it's more of the group's wants.
Right. Yeah. So it's just, that's where it's dangerous, is because of that centralized power. And that's just one thing that I just want people to understand when it comes to stuff like that is, obviously when you distribute, like an actual distribution of power, not the goods, not the, if you actually like share power, obviously there's going to be bad things that happen, but that's where you want, it's inevitable. So when it comes to seeking information, when it comes to putting yourself out there, no matter what, there is always going to be an entity, a person, something that tries to corrupt it.
Yeah, the thing that Christ got most angry at was people grifting off of religion. It was grifting off the mysteries of the universe. He got more angry than he ever had at anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that, okay, so if aliens and angels are kind of like fit in that same category, I would say they're the most susceptible thing to being manipulated with, as far as not actually that actual entity necessarily being manipulated, but this other thing appearing and trying to mimic it and everything. So that's where and then just like a lot of the stuff around aliens, it just doesn't sound very guardian angel-y. It doesn't sound celestial in any way.
There are times where people have had accounts of like very positive feelings afterwards, but the vast majority are not.
Yeah.
From what I've observed.
Yeah. And if you want to get into more cuckoo, we're staying real cuckoo today. I recall hearing this thing. Now, of course, I don't have sources. So this is just me talking out of my face. And
another mouths are gone.
So there's, yeah, it's true. It's true. Other things are gone too. I'm talking out my eyeballs.
All right, there we go. Telepathy.
I remember hearing this story a long time ago. Very well could have been not real, could have been fake, could have been whatever. But this thing was that whatever secret, it might have been an Area 51 thing, it might have been whatever, secret government thing. This guy that talked about, and maybe we'll just have to research this and see what we can find in the subject as far as the future goes. This guy talked about that these secret government projects or whatever, that they are the ones building the UFOs, and that they're getting directions from what they think is an alien, and it's an interdimensional being that they have in captivity, and it is influenced, and it speaks to them through telepathy, and he said he saw it one time, and it was in like some kind of not like a typical cage, but some sort of confinement, like a clear box, and there was like nothing in it, and he said that it all of a sudden appeared as a smoke, like kind of grayish smoke. And then it like kind of like started moving around. And then I don't recall if he necessarily heard it speak to him or anything like that. But if I wanted to embellish, I would say, yeah, he heard it speak to him through in his head. But that's what I recall hearing about this story a long time ago. So that sounds kind of demonic to me.
You could view it in two ways, and both of them are terrifying. It's either that on one hand, because we have given up our spiritual knowledge, we are easily deceived because we view it as, oh, well, this is just a natural thing that has wants and desires like us. We can negotiate with it. And all the time it's playing you like a fiddle, offering you this power, this technology that'll allow you to become like God. You'll be able to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's the devil. Or alternatively, the elites do know what it is. They summoned it. Aleister Crowley was near certain test sites when he was doing some occult sex magic. I think it was Crowley.
I'm pretty
might
sure.
have been somebody else. Maybe it was summoned, and certain people who have the knowledge of the occult know what it is. They know how to contain it. Maybe it's a box, and this box functions as similar to a circle of stones that contain it.
Mm-hmm.
But the people working there don't know what it is. And they think that it's something that is of our natural world. And both those possibilities are equally horrifying,
Yeah.
but in different ways. And that, that story there, that really sent a chill because up me, because I think that is I think that's the thing, is like the scariest aspect is that is the concept of just the demonic in terms of the subtle manipulation. It's not that they're gonna jump out and like growl at you. They're not like monsters. It's just that they're pushing you towards creating your own destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It almost influences their greatest tool.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes in line with what I was always taught growing up, as far as like, the devil, the whatever demonic thing. They'll tell you 99% truth with 1% lie.
The jinn. He'll fulfill your wish, but not as you expect it.
Exactly. So whatever it is exactly that their own intention is, they're going to get what they want. And they'll give you what you want for the most part. And whatever it is exactly that they want in return.
It's funny. That story just reminded me, that UFO interview I told you before we started recording. The guy was talking about MBE 1, 2, and 3, and they were all from different crashes. MBE 3 was alive up to a certain point, and what they did was they kept it in an electromagnetic cage because it was the one thing they couldn't pass through. But they could turn themselves invisible. So there would be times where they would have someone living in there, and he would turn invisible and operate like a poltergeist. He would mess shit up. And then eventually he would turn visible, and they could then apparently, obviously it's like there's no evidence, but there was an interview with him recorded in the 60s or something. But that reminded me of that idea. Is like there's a certain thing they can't pass through, but they're within, and they perhaps are perhaps if it's not them straight up manipulating, it's them looking for any opportunity to escape, and they're just giving this knowledge for like because apparently the guy said there was a transmission where they were like, MBE 3 has not yet seen the sea, prepare the arrangements before it dies, or something like that. And it's not necessarily tied directly to that, but it's a commonality of the imprisoned, whether willingly or not. The most dangerous thing is the cornered animal, the thing that you think is imprisoned, but is in fact in total control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One thing, you mentioned the word jinn.
The jinn, yeah.
Jinn are known for being attached to things, being attached to objects. So here's an idea.
Okay.
They manipulate and tell humanity to build them these spacecrafts and stuff like that. Maybe the spacecrafts are just drones or something, and they attach themselves to it. So then when you see a flying saucer, when you see it crash land, you do see a physical ship. It is real. But the beings that you see around it are real, but maybe not so real.
So that's why they. Well, we don't, because obviously the lore contradicts, but that's the whole concept of, well, if they crashed in Roswell
Yeah.
and they built Area 51 there, it's because they couldn't move them anywhere else. They had to keep it by the crash. They couldn't like transport the body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah,
If it has a body.
because like not even just there's there's crashes, there's things.
Yeah.
I've heard these stories, of people being like, I legit like saw like some kind of weird spacecraft looking thing, like this hunk of metal saucer, like people that are like lots of stories of people really seeing those things, and it's like if let's say that these people are telling the truth that they did see these things, then it's like. It seems like there was some sort of actual physical craft. So, I don't know.
Interesting. Flying lamps.
Flying lamps just roaming the galaxy, granting wishes. Sounds like the new Adult Swim show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to keep with the dark and to counter what we were saying about angels earlier, now we will talk about the demonic side.
Well,
as aliens are demons. So I took an article from the Mirror. It's a UK publication. The article is called "Aliens Are Demons Created by Evil Powers to Feed on Human Passions." So, Catholic theologian Dr. Paul Thigpen claims that although he believes aliens are demons, a leading Catholic scholar claimed that alleged alien abduction stories have parallels with people who say they have encounters with demons. He went on to add that aliens are in fact more likely than demons, or more likely demons. His hypothesis that they are demons accounts for some of the UAP reports, especially some of the so-called alien abductions that have demonstrated clear parallels with what the church calls demonic encounters. Archbishop Chrysostomus of the Etna wrote that ultimately one cannot escape the conclusion that the alien abductions are of demonic power, or are demon or phantoms created by demonic power. He went on to call them corrupt and degenerate and thrive on human passions and feed on them. He explains that that almost universal sexual exploitation of the captives are by alien abductees or abductors.
Succubi.
Yep. Before I go on, it's crazy how most of these ideas, there's different creatures, cryptids, ideas that they could all fit into. Where you just had the idea of a succubus, whereas before it could have been a poltergeist. It makes you think as maybe they might be all one of the same.
Bum, 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 bum.
Bum, bum. All right. So to finish this last little bit of the article that I have saved here, Etna says, in the second place, in course of their physical examination of the abductees, the aliens inflict pain on their victims and frequently scar them. It says, in the first place, they look like demons. They appear to be material creatures, yet have a transparent character, which goes back to what the two stories that you guys were talking about earlier. He says, according to the teaching of the church, demons are spiritual beings. That is, they are fallen angels. But that was the last little bit I saved from that. And Dr. Thigpen also wrote a book called Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Catholic Faith. And he believes that the aliens exist because they were made by God under the lordship of Christ, which, if you go back into the ideas that they're fallen angels, fits into the idea that the gray men, the idea is that they have fallen from the sky, where most of us believe that aliens come from. Before I go into this next article, which is, I saved just little bits of scriptures that kind of support the fallen angel idea. what do you guys believe on this demonic thing? Do you guys still agree that aliens are more demonic than angelic?
I will say I have two thoughts. I'll be real quick. I apologize.
You're good.
The first is that, I mean, I'd have to go back and reread the Bible, but usually, like I was saying, angels will appear as humans and they will deliver messages directly to you because they want to communicate something. But the very much a rule, one of the Ten Commandments is you must not idolatrize anything. So the angels are very much like, we're not. This isn't about us. This is about giving glory to God. We're talking about His plan. This isn't about us. So you could view it in some way to kind of go to my earlier thing of like maybe they're purposely invisible most of the time because they don't want to be an idol to be worshipped.
Mm-hmm.
And going off of that, another way to take it is that we've talked, I mean, Brandon outlined several different purported types, and we have cryptids and all these other things. Perhaps some aliens, maybe the ones that, because we don't see all into their ships all the time, maybe those ones are regular angels, and the ones who quote unquote interact with humanity choose to stay among us, perhaps those are the demons, because they do not care about staying away from our eyes. They wish to be influencers among us. So I would say that perhaps one of those two is like either like solidly demonic, or maybe there's different types and we can't understand,
Why couldn't there be different types,
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't if demons are fallen angels, wouldn't they be somewhat similar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The wheels,
a little different.
the wheels within wheels, everyone loves those ones, the angels that are the wheels with the eyes. Perhaps the saucers, the eyes are the lights. And when you're not in heaven, looks like a light because it's literally the light of heaven viewing you. So the lights could be the wheels. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
perhaps.
When you were reading the last little bit of that article, you just specifically said something about demons that is now starting to escape my mind, but it was talking about how they feed off of our passions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So obviously your passion of researching UFOs and like really delving deep, giving your time and energy to that thing, something like that. But then one thing that entered my mind just now as you're reading that is I don't remember the wording that you said. It defined, after it said that they feed off our passions, something about them being like crude and just
corrupt and degenerate.
Yep, that's the word. That made something enter my mind. So let's say aliens are demons, and then Solo get into there's occult stuff and rituals. You get abducted, and then they perform a sex ritual on you. And that's what all this probing and they did different things to me and stuff. So in essence, it's like the purpose of what they're doing is to violate you. Because they're literally performing rituals on you, whether that be actual demons, or maybe somehow there's humans involved in this scenario, but
which maybe could be like some kind of demonic possession.
Yeah,
Right.
Maybe that's the way that they're able to get inside you, by probing you like that.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Because purposefully wanting to scar you and disfigure you. That's got demonic written all over it.
And we've seen with a lot of cults in our society is branding, scarring. It's part of the dehumanization and ownership process.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know, that makes sense to me, rather than just like it's a constant, all these people have just been experimented on and just to study. That it makes a little more sense to me that it's made more.
Here's
of a
my
ritual.
thing. Going off of that, just real quick. So if we have a lab, Rick, when we want to have rats for trials, do we just take random rats from the wild and experiment on them one at a time?
No,
No, we take two of them and breed them,
exactly.
right? So like if they really were needing to, I mean, and you could say, well, there's different groups or whatever, but
Yeah.
would they really need to keep grabbing humans? I mean, you could assume that they maybe took two humans and bred them, but then why bother with these forays? We don't really go out and hunt mice as much anymore because we have access to the lab grown rats
Yeah.
and mice. So
But
that does maybe lend some credence to what Brandon's saying. I don't know.
we do have a lot of missing people that go unfound for, you know,
Ever.
years
Yeah.
and years and even longer.
Hmm.
That's just the murder rituals of the elite. Don't worry about it.
Maybe the murder
That'll be a
rituals
different
of the elite
episode when we talk about that.
are the
Yeah.
abductions.
Well, exactly. I mean, who can say? I mean, to get kind of topical, we look at the animistic societies of yore, and then Epstein's Island had a big thing about animal masks. So perhaps a dressing up as a alien or demonic or otherworldly thing as part of the process. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're on enough drugs, you don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
also just like maybe a dehumanization
Yeah.
aspect to it, because
Well, we talked about the Wendigo and that picture of him turning people into beavers so he could eat them, and I keep thinking back to that as like, yeah, you turn you either make yourself higher or you make them an
Lower
animal.
than you.
So it's either you go up so you're automatically higher, or they are forced down.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And like that's the thing, is another side of that when it comes to the elite is I won't go too much into it, but I've heard things about a specific ritual there's a specific word that I'm missing. It has to do with dehumanization and embarrassing you, making you putting you in a vulnerable situation, and there's a theory that like actors that are a part of whatever Illuminati or whatever, that they get subjected to the dehumanization ritual, where they have to go take a role or do some sort of performance that is just like gross or
do you remember when Dave Chappelle was talking about why are black men wearing dresses all the time?
yeah.
Like, why? Why?
Yep.
Like
Exactly. So it's that kind of thing where it's like they want you to go out there and get embarrassed, do something embarrassing to like literally like lower than them. So that's another side of that.
Or they just they blast you in the tabloids or the media, and that's how they do it. If you get too big for your britches, you say no, or you become a part of something that maybe you didn't think you were a part of, or you could walk away, and then maybe they decide to knock you down a peg if you.
Yep.
And that doesn't have to be like conspiracy theory giant evil cult. That's just like
That's just Weinstein,
that's just something
baby.
you do in politics,
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, to finish off more about the demonic stuff, I have a couple of ideas from 242 Community Church that supports everything that was said in the first passage about the demons and aliens. It says that given the definition of alien refers to any foreign being, there is room for the being to be described as demonic. But in Scripture, demonic beings are spiritual beings that are a part of a spiritual realm, not of another planet. It says the spiritual realm does interact with the world throughout Scriptures. For example, I don't know how to pronounce this right. It's a book of the Bible, Ephesians 6:12
Ephesians, yeah.
talks about an enemy that is not of flesh and blood, but that includes rulers, authorities, powers, forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And then Corinthians 10:4-5 talks about fighting the spiritual enemy with weapons not of this world. In Matthew chapter 4, the tempter meets Jesus in the wilderness. So whether they are considered aliens or demons that are these spiritual beings interacting with script, or in the scriptures interacting with humans, might be something of thought. But the final two that I have the scriptures here, see, it says that demons are spiritual beings that sided with Satan as an enemy of God and lost their place in heaven and were hurled to earth, which supports that the idea of fallen angels.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last scripture I have is Revelation 12:7-9 says, where they engage with humanity in an attempt to keep people away from their salvation. So, could these be, like you guys are saying, the little guy locked up in the little cube, giving us, the weapons to fight on the next, plane of existence or spiritual realm, as he was saying? Are these weapons not of our realm that could possibly be when maybe the angels descend, we're going to fight back against the angels, and we be part of that demonic army? Could that be something?
Very interesting.
They're out here recruiting.
Yeah. So could we be part of this like demonic army in a sense that we have no idea what we're doing, but we're building all these weapons of war,
right?
Nuclear weapons that could, possibly kill angels, maybe a god. We know it wipes us out pretty well, and there's enough power to wipe out.
And again, the nuclear, it ties in earlier. I was talking about the vibrations, like the atoms. Yep. What's a nuclear? What's fission? You're splitting the atom, so it's like you're killing the fundamental building blocks of God's creation. Life. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe that's ooh.
Ooh. This is a whole other like. If we really dive into this particular thing, this is going to go on for another 5 hours.
Yes, exactly.
This is why, like, I think we can honestly do it. Aliens Part 2, 3, 4, 5, because this idea has so many different like fruitful topics that we could just go in tangents and talk forever. I believe this one's going to be like our longest episode, as of yet.
We have officially hit the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, nice. And we could still go on and on and on and on more about this. To finish off with my demon talk with aliens being demons.
Demon talk with Rick.
But we were talking about, where the idea of gender is starting to be questioned and thrown out. And just recently we've started going into scarification and tattoos and mass piercings and tattooing eyeballs and body modifications. Is that something that maybe we are turning into these so-called demons? Maybe we might be part of the demonic army. Maybe we might be aliens in the future, like some of the ideas that we've talked about.
See, that's the funny thing. As it's like so I'm not saying like rock and roll is the devil or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like it's interesting how there's all these things that people view as platitudes, like don't get tattoos of symbols, because then you're marked with that symbol, or piercings, or and again, I'm not ruling any one way about it, but it is interesting when you view it from that side of like perhaps the again, I believe that if you deny the biological nature of humankind and refuse to come to grips with it, and master yourself and choose to deny your humanity, it won't lead to good things. So
I know like a few of the like I think I've seen a few videos where there's people that interview people walking by and ask them what they're doing. I saw this one of a tattoo artist. Was a pretty cool guy, pretty interesting guy, but he had his eyes tattooed black.
They literally inject dye into their iris.
Yikes.
Yeah.
He had I believe he had modification of horns.
Yeah, I have seen stuff about this guy.
Tattooed. Yeah. And I was like, when I was watching the video, I was like, wow, isn't that what we visualize as a demon or as a demonic presence. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And
I know he's probably purposely playing into that, idea.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, for
But
sure.
as a person that's like, that's not into that community that does all the modifications and piercings and tattoos and stuff like that, and you're living as a person that's pretty strict, living to the Bible, and you see that type of person walk by, what's the first thought that's going to come to your head? There's demons walking among us, you know?
Yeah.
And just to add one more pop culture reference to give us more fodder for the viewers,
Yeah.
look up the novel Childhood's End. It's a sci-fi book, and I'm gonna spoil it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, it is related to some of the stuff we've been talking
La
about.
la la.
I don't. You guys, it's fine if you guys know because. But essentially, the plot is like, what if aliens showed up to Earth and they look like the stereotypical demon?
Mm-hmm.
So they look like the devil, and they're not like negative, but it is interesting that correlation was made in that novel.
Yeah, I looked it up and I see it's on. They have season 1 on Amazon Prime, and the first image is basically what you expect a demon to look like.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I would say that, like, if you believe in all this, religion stuff with like God and the devil and demons and the war in heaven, like that kind of stuff, describing everything that you just did, with the future, like them, like almost recruiting them, trying to have us do that. Well, yeah, they would definitely try. Like that's not even like a speculation. Of course they would try.
Right.
So if that's what's going on, then yes, it's not even like, it's just a question of if it's real or not. That's the question. It's not a question of would they do that? Of course they would. So
Right.
And and they always say that evil comes from like the least expected way that you're looking.
yeah, yeah, like
Evil
and what we
begets
think-
evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have what we think is if that little man is captured, we think that we're the powerful one in the situation. And like you said all along, he's been in power the whole time, making us build his weapons of war. So if the battle happens between good and evil, he's going to have that power for all of his army to fight the Lord.
I just had a crazy idea.
Boom.
What if Brandon's story is true? He can be invisible, but it's like the smoke. And so the reason why we simultaneously have this, like, the government knows about UFOs, but for so long they were like, there's no such thing, is because they were like, everyone's fucking saying to go to Roswell. Okay, let's go there. And they go there and it's just like an invisible box. What are you gonna do? Like, what is that? It's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just some testing equipment. And they leave, and then it pops back up and says like, yeah, we got to keep this secret. They're gonna shut down what we're doing here. Like, so maybe certain parties that shouldn't know, they did investigate, but because the invisibility or the etherealness, there was nothing there, and so they're like, you guys are all crazy. But then they start seeing more and more of the UAPs, and they're like, wait a minute, like, what? Wait, but we confirmed it's not real. It's like, it's not.
Yeah.
Right? So
I know one of my friends who's like big into UFOs and stuff. He talks about how there's been a bunch of like UFO sightings over like the White House over the years that haven't really been talked about much. And he goes further into the ideas that there's like major cities across the world that are called, I think they're called star cities, that the whole landscape isn't a star. It has water around it, and there's a church in the middle. And if you look at church, there's like these different like markings on the grounds where different artifacts have been in the past. And he thinks that if you play a certain thing on the big grand organ, it vibrates the different artifacts and sends what's it called, projections up to space.
right.
And now those artifacts are missing. If you go to those big churches, he's like, where have they taken those?
Da 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 da.
And he says that that's like another where like the word the healing waters came from, because you'd play on the organ and the waters were around the church and people would get healed by the water. I'm sure I'm not
Back to your
100%.
vibrations, Josiah.
Yeah, back to
I'm
the
telling you.
vibration.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you. It's like,
Oh my god, everything is everything.
Yeah, and like
The Sopranos.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I don't
damn.
know. I'm thinking that to keep this episode a little bit shorter, we're gonna probably have
Hour
to keep
3. Here we go.
our own personal ideas to probably tell we do Aliens Part 2, because we could probably go on for like another hour easily talking about
Yeah.
just our own personal views and ideas.
Yeah, man. Let's
Unless you guys really want to share your ideas, which I'm game for, but maybe save a little meat on the bone for
Yeah.
I
I think we need to absorb. I want to absorb a lot of this because
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
have an answer. Like, strictly speaking, I've been throwing out like a million cool ideas.
yeah.
But I want to like kind of sit and absorb it, and maybe after we put this episode out and see if there's any feedback, because I think there's some really, but between the Wendigo episode and this one, I think we've really been like doing some, I won't say groundbreaking work, but we've been exploring some very interesting ideas. It's very fascinating. So I'm willing to just wait for part 2,
Yeah,
or reconvene.
Yeah, I agree.
because at least for myself, I didn't really know much about aliens past their little green men or gray aliens, or them coming from space, or being, maybe some kind of like doomsday, people that tell us that things are happening, don't do it. I didn't really know much about it.
Yeah, same here. As far as like, I thought I knew quite a bit, but like as we were like talking, it's like there's just so much,
It goes deep. It goes deep, man. We didn't even get into like, I mean, again, I think the cryptid stuff is just lumped together, but there's specific cryptids that you could go into like, well, maybe the Jersey Devil. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd even talk about, aliens could be like cephalopods too, because I know there's like a whole little
Yeah.
idea that octopus are aliens, and they're a lot smarter.
No,
than
yeah, because
put out.
isn't that like literally a thing that like octopuses are just like literally like different octopi, whatever.
Yeah, and then also like water bears are theorized to have come from an asteroid because they can survive in space.
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
vacuum of space.
We need to save this because
Yeah.
this is
Yeah, yeah.
this is
There's definitely
too
going to be Aliens
interesting.
Part 2.
Yeah, Aliens Part 2, and we just have a whole thing. The Kraken is actually
Yeah.
the alien that crash landed.
Bomb, bomb, bomb. Bro, literally, freaking Cthulhu is supposed to be
Cthulhu
like
is-
an alien and the crash.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe
HP
the
was
core
onto
photo-
something. He was onto something.
Bruh.
The alien is Kraken.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. The Leviathan. It's all connected.
Definitely.
man. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
Oh no. All right,
My
gentlemen.
mind's bursting. All these ideas.
Oh, my
All
God.
these
Yeah.
different things.
If,
Gentlemen. Yeah.
yeah, if our audience knows of even more out there alien theories or anything, definitely let us know. Comment on it. Give us some links. Let us know where to look, and we'll start digging and see what we can discover and discuss. I'm definitely interested. I mean, even the real kooky ones. I mean, we saw how those what those blossomed into today. So
Yeah.
anything and everything, I want to hear it. And even if it's kind of dumb, let's discuss it.
No, I'm willing to like entertain it. We already looked at the UFO footage at this point. Like, just give it all. Like, we'll look at it at least, and
Yeah.
maybe. Like, we gave reptilians a chance. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. That's true.
I didn't think I would going into this, but you know what?
Yep. Our Facebook profiles are going to be deleted after this because
Bruh.
made fun of the main reptilian himself.
Yeah,
The Zuck.
they're coming for us. We're gonna get zucked in our sleep. It's part of the ritual.
Yeah.
Oh God. gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure to record this aliens podcast with you guys. We've only scratched the surface, and yeah, this is the longest episode of all time till now. And I'm sure that this is the start of us blossoming into some really kooky but interesting stuff. So thank you all for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share the podcast. There will be clips showing up as shorts on here. Please share those. That's really easy to explain kind of what the podcast is about with those bite-sized chunks. Please comment anything you want, like anything interesting. We'll probably talk about it. We might even get to the point where we have to tackle like comments for the first 15 minutes and then move on to the topic.
I would love to do that.
Yeah,
that sounds fun. We'll have some more readings of stuff, probably reaction to footage. That's always fun. But until then, I've been Josiah.
Who are you now? I'm Brandon. Ah, you're me.
I'm the Zuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been Josiah.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Brandon.
And this has been The Journey into the Fictitious Dark. Thanks for watching.